Welcome, everybody. Nice to be together again. And I'm here today to talk to Deborah Pugh, who is an amazing abstract artist. And I'm really happy that she's here today because I've been trying to talk to her for quite a few months now. We've been almost crossing each other's paths and haven't quite made it. So welcome, Deborah. How are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, well, it's a lovely sunny day, but we've got a little bit cooler weather here. This is, for those of you watching the video, maybe later, we're in June in 2024. And as you'll probably know, we've had a burst of heat, but generally the year's not got off to a great start, which is interesting for artists. How do you find the light when you're trying to paint in and hoping for good weather and good lighting in the summer, and perhaps it's a bit overcast? Does that affect your art at all, Deborah?
Yes, I tend to like to paint early in the morning, so I'm an early bird. So in the summer, I'm up and out normally around 6 o'clock if I'm going out painting. So because the light is just beautiful in the morning. I'm not so the light is lovely at the end of the day too, but I'm not really an end of the day person. So
Me too. Me too.
yeah,
I'm a morning person. Normally wake at 5, up and about, pottering and doing.
yes.
Yeah. So you prefer to paint outside then, do you? Do you get most of your inspiration from outside and then bring it back to the studio, or do your complete paintings outside?
I'm an outdoor girl, so I love to be outside, and I go out and I draw and paint outside all the time. But actually, most of the work actually happens back in the studio. So I'm taking all of those things that I've seen and recorded, and then the magic happens when I'm away from the environment.
Yeah, yeah, and it is magic. It's really lovely. Your style of painting is really quite, I don't know, eye-catching. It's colourful, and the form and the shape and the composition is very bright as well. There's a lot of space within your work. So we'll have a look at that. We can see a few little things behind you, which I assume are yours, are they?
Yes, they are.
So
Yes.
we'll discuss that in a moment. So how did you come to follow the path of art? And were you inspired young, or did it come to you later?
Well, I've always done arty things, but actually, as a youngster, I was going to go into music. So
Ah,
I used to play the bassoon,
okay.
and I was going to go to college and do music, and then I decided that I didn't quite want to do that. That I wanted to teach. So I went to teacher training college, and I had the opportunity to follow art there, but never quite had the courage to go, oh, actually, I'd like to swap. So that didn't happen. And then when I got married, I decided actually I didn't want to be going out and playing in bands and orchestras. And so I really stopped playing. And that's where that need, I had a sort of a hole in my being that I needed to fill with something. And it all started when I actually went to Rochester, and Francis Isles, which sadly is
Oh,
closed,
yes.
used to run wonderful workshops. And I saw a guy called Charlie Evans painting in watercolour, and he made it look so easy. And I thought, I've always loved playing with colour and drawing things, and my mum used to paint. There's a lot of artists in our family, and I thought, I'm going to give it a go. So I went and did some lessons with him, and then really that's where it snowballed. You know, you go and you try something out, and you go, I really like doing this, but I didn't want to paint the chocolate box landscape. So then, you know, it just carried on from there, really. I had to find new teachers, and I tried out, well, I'd like to say everything, really. You know, I've done a bit of printing, I've tried acrylics. I've only recently done some oils, which I quite like. But it was more the subject that, you know, there was something in me that I would express in my music, but I didn't have a way of expressing, and I needed to find a way of expressing that. And so that's really where the abstract art has come in.
Yeah, so it's a bit nebulous, a little bit difficult to grasp and understand exactly what that something is, that creative impulse or the expression, as you say.
Yes.
So do you feel that art has completely fulfilled that and replaced the expressiveness?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Your
I think that actually the two, I feel, are closer than we sometimes think, because even music is subjective. There are those people who love classical music, and there are those people who hate classical music. And a bit like Marmite, my art's like that. You know, some people love it, some people hate it, and that's all fine. For me, what I like about abstract art is that I put into it my feelings and what I've seen and my ideas, and then you as the viewer take that and you bring yourself to it. So you might see things in it that I haven't intended at all. But that's because of your experience. So I think that's beautiful. Funny enough, I've been thinking recently that as a youngster, I was always somebody I wanted to please. I was a good girl, as they would say. Do you know what I mean? I tried to do my best to do everything right, to do what other people wanted. And I've always cared for people. Do you know what I mean? In teaching, especially with young children, you're caring for them as well. And everything was about being good and other people. And art is totally about me. And I think it comes from that sort of older age rebellion, really, that this is me. If you don't like it, that's fine. But I'm going to do what I want now.
Yes, yeah, it's important. Some artists will be like that all the way through their lives, but I think women in particular are not expected to take art up as a profession. So let's come back to you then. What's the highlight of your journey then? What was the things that inspired you the most, or who inspired you the most? Anybody?
Oh, there's been so many people. I love the artist David Tress. There's a Yorkshire artist called Debbie Lone, who I've done some lessons with, and she's been really wonderful. I'm very much about the present. I've done a lot of courses with a lady called Emily Ball and Karen Stamper, all wonderful people. It's interesting that a lot of them are women. Maybe that's where I am. You know, as a woman, you connect with women.
I think language, and when you're trying to learn something in particular, there is that. And I do think there is a lack of female artists historically who have been acclaimed.
Yeah.
And I think modern women want to be seen as successful. The values that women hold, that are innate, of love, compassion, nurturing, etc., are things that are attractive. So we as women are attracted to each other. I think that's always been the case, but we're looking for more acknowledgement now.
Yes, it's lovely to have the acknowledgement. It's great when you get into an exhibition, you go, yes, that's brilliant. Although your girls change all the time.
You're obviously a very brave woman, a brave artist, and experimental, and you don't mind the weather. So what do you find is the response in exhibitions then? How do people perceive your work? What do they say to you?
Some people will go, I just don't understand. And then you can talk to them, and they're normally, okay, so now I understand a bit more. So my abstracts come from the landscape. They're not of the landscape at all. I will choose little bits that have meaning for me. My mother had muscular dystrophy and was confined to a wheelchair for many years. And in those days, it was hard to go out. So, in fact, she was looking at her own environment. And what she really taught me is to be so interested in those little things, you know, how the light was coming through the window, the butterfly that had landed, all those tiny minutiae. And that's what I'm interested really in the wider landscape.
That's a lovely way of putting it. It's a lovely way to see things, and a reason, you know, the way that she's influenced you to appreciate that, and then it comes out in your art. So that's
yes,
yeah.
It has been a big influence.
And the color choices, the colors that I've seen are the more recent things are quite vibrant. Is that something that you've always done, or is that something you've come to at the moment?
So I've always loved vibrant colors, always. But the colours came about really quite subtly when talking about the work. My sister said to me, "So where do the colours come from?" And I went, "Oh, they're just what's in my palette." And she went, "But how did they end up in your palette?" And I thought that was a very good question, because actually what would happen is I would go out painting and I'd go, "Oh, I'd really like to have magenta with me, but I haven't got magenta in my palette." So I'd go, "Well, I never use yellow ochre." So out would go the yellow ochre, in would go the magenta. And slowly over time, the colours that I really love, that I want to use, are now in my palette. So, you know, whether I've got a tin of paints or whether I'm buying paints in tubes, because in the studio I tend to work with tube colour, they're the colours that over time I've chosen from being outside. But I do tend to heighten the colour.
Yeah, it's really interesting to understand how you put your palette together, and therefore that reflects on the colours in your painting. It's, yeah, not many artists will tell us things like that, so that's really cool. Yeah. So and when it comes to exhibitions, do you think you're a prolific exhibitor, or are you very careful where you put yourself occasionally? How do you exhibit?
I try. Art is no good if it's just done and left in the studio. So I try to get it out so that other people can see it. It does give you an idea of what they like about your work. So quite often colour, you know, vibrancy is mentioned. Although having said that, I've got some more recent works that aren't as vibrant, but that's where your art changes. You know, it changes with where you're thinking about and what you're doing. So when I went on my residency to Brysonsville recently,
I was literally just going to ask you about residencies. Yes,
so
great.
there was a huge gale while we were there, and for me that was petrifying. It created quite a lot of anxiety. And I wasn't able to get out as much as I wanted to paint outside. So it's a lovely property right on the edge of Cape Cornwall.
I'll interject there because I know the area very well, and it is very wild. It is wild, and that particular storm was very difficult to walk, even in the town and the villages. Very difficult to walk. But you must have seen the clashing of great waves and the skies and tempests. So how did that affect your palette? Did you change what came out?
So it was very interesting that it was very chaotic. And to calm myself, the property's wonderful. It's got a painting studio upstairs and you can look down on the sea. And I spent a long time just looking out of the window, drawing the marks that you get in the sea, because the winds were so powerful. I mean, one day I went to get some materials out of my car, the boot lid was swung up, the lid was off the pastels, it was miles away. You know, I actually lost some of my packaging, and literally I was clamping it down, closing the lid, going, okay, not today. Yes, I mean, would you like to see some of what I've done from there?
Yeah.
So we also had the partial eclipse while we were there.
Yes.
So this was one of the paintings that I did while there.
Wow.
And you can see that, I mean, the sky was just orange. It was quite
amazing.
It was quite beautiful, but also threatening, you know, with the low cloud and the big cliffs that sort of loom over the top of you. I mean, it wasn't until day 4 that I even managed to go up the steps onto the cliff, because it was so windy.
I wouldn't have done. I'm very respectful of the sea and the cliffs, and especially on the Cape. But it's quite a violent, in storm weather, it can be quite violent, because Cornwall was always depicted as very beautiful, placid and tropical, deep blue skies and seas, and yet there is that other side, that deep wilderness across the walks. The coastal walks are open and exposed, but in that painting there with the blues, they're very calming. So you've got the tension between the pinky orangey colours and the blues.
Yes, I think that's it. As I say, you bring yourself to it. So although I found it very created anxiousness in me and that anxiety, but then part of my painting, if you like, is therapeutic as well to myself. So then you're also calming yourself down. So you're bringing that calm in, because that's what you need. So I think that can be seen in the paintings, that there is that calm, but there's also that, as you say, tension from the anxiety that's going on. You know, when you're going on a residency somewhere, you're going there to collect information to take home and create paintings later. And all of the things that you see and you feel and experience go into that. So I did quite a lot of writing while I was there, reflection on my process, and I was also very interested in the history of the area. So I did manage, on our last day, we had glorious sunshine, and I went over to the mines and had a look at the mines, and I was very interested in that. So I've got one here where you've got the crown heads that are just beautiful, and of course Poldark made them very famous. I love industrial archaeology, so I also added in one of the crown heads that I love. I mean, I think you can see the anxiety in the background. Beautiful, but nevertheless, there's that power. And I think that came together with that sense of the mining. And when you go to YouTube, you can find videos of the mining accidents that happened and things like that. So one more of one of the buildings from.
It's lovely from my point of view for you to capture the history there, because my family, I come from a long line of miners and fishermen.
Yes, I mean, this time I've tried to bring in more of the realistic in with the abstract. Do you know what I mean? So it's a play between the two, because I was very keen to portray some of that history. Say, I love industrial archaeology, and the thought that, you know, there were those people and it was underground and lives were lost. And, you know, just the power of the weather while I was there made you understand how lives could be lost.
But it is a very different part of Cornwall, especially that little corner there, very wild. There's a lot of fishermen still going out from there, and the boulders are huge, and got the prisms, and
Yes,
it's just most people don't see that side. They don't, if they come down, they don't always, they go to the more touristy places. They don't always go to the wilderness unless they're good trekkers, good boots. So it's wonderful. So when you've come back, then are you exhibiting now? Are you part of the open studios at all?
Yes, I've been open for 3 weeks, and yeah, it's been lovely. You know, I haven't got these aren't framed yet, obviously, so they'll be framed, and hopefully I'll be able to have an exhibition that's more about the coast. I mean, the coast is very, very important to me. I've always been a lover of the coast.
And so how can people contact you? What's the best way for someone who's watching this now to think, oh, I'd like to talk to Deborah about possibly buying a piece or looking further at your work?
Okay, so I do have a website, which is www.debpugh.com. Although I have to say I'm not very good at updating it. So the best place to find me is through Instagram or Facebook, where I'm Deborah Pugh Art.
And that's Pugh.
Yes.
Yes, Deborah Pugh. I will put all your information into the description and in the comments. And so, and you can also, anyone who's watching this now, if you're really interested in what Deborah's shown us and the way she describes her art and talks about the process, maybe it's inspiring you to take up art or to look at watercolour, or maybe to think about a residency. Have you tried a residency? And if you'd like to talk to Deborah about any of these, then do go and find her Instagram then. So Instagram's probably best. That's fantastic. Do you have anything else to show us before we close?
I've got a couple of paintings just to show you. So much more abstract, but actually about the local landscape. So this one was in with the Society of Women Artists, as we were talking about women. I'm in there at the moment. There's a large work of mine on display, so if you'd like to go to that, that's on until just this weekend, but you can also find it on their website.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah.
Thank you. This was Bouquet of Beauty, which is about the local landscape, but also about the loss of my father. And again, that's been in with up at the Mall Galleries with the RI. And then this one, which was up in London earlier this year, this is actually all about Sittingbourne.
Okay.
So I had a solo exhibition in Sittingbourne in the Swale Media Arts Centre, and I started this, and you can see quite a lot of the church and windows from the pub, and I love the signs. So it's taking all those pieces. Yes,
very different. I think that's the thing about abstract art, isn't it? It's taking life and making it your own. You know, it's about evolving as a person as well, isn't it, as an artist?
Most definitely. You very much find out more about yourself and what really inspires you and what you love.
That's really, I think that we'll end on that sentence. I think that's really, really quite lovely for any flourishing artists out there. And if you're not artistic and you don't think you could pick up a brush or a pencil, why not have a go? Just have a go and play with colour and enjoy it and love it. Thank you, Deborah. That's really interesting talking to you. I'd love to talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Victoria.
I've really enjoyed it. So thank you, and everybody, I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.